Well, we're going to dive in and do kind of like what we did last week and kind of cruise through a lot of material. But these two chapters really are, we're going to touch on 17 and 18 tonight. Last week, do you remember what happened in chapter 16? Where did we leave off? At the end of chapter 16. Thanks, Lonnie. You weren't here, so shh. So what happened, though? We had the sons of Korah, right? The rebellion. Twice rebellion, right? We had one day, 250 people died by fire, and a couple families got swallowed up by the earth. The next day, that wasn't good enough, and more people stood up and said, and rebelled, and another 14,000 people were wiped out by a plague, right? But what did Aaron do? He ran with the censer and stood between the living and the dead, right? And what's that a picture of? Picture of Jesus, right? What Jesus does for us. And so you have this, and I put that first point on there, as the wilderness turns, right? This is feeling like a soap opera, isn't it? And I toyed with titles like, As the Wilderness Turns, All My Israelites, whatever. But this really feels like a soap opera, right? It's just, you look at it and you just kind of want to go, wow, right? Because you have this, and I jotted it down. You have rebellion, then you have judgment. And then the next day, more rebellion, and then more judgment, and then Aaron intercedes. And now we're going to look at the back half of this, where God's going to confirm Aaron once and for all, and he's also going to commission them. Okay, so we're going to kind of dive through that. So I'm going to skip, So, like I said, Korah's challenge wasn't political, it was theological, and it really just pointed to their heart issue, right? They didn't trust God, they didn't trust who God had put in charge. And like we talked about last week, you are who you hang with. Korah and those 250 people didn't just spontaneously all at the same time have the idea to rebel, right? There was some of this going on. Some murmur and going back and forth. And complaining is a cancer, isn't it? Murmuring is a cancer, gossip is a cancer. And that's what's going on here. And this is what you see play out, is a bunch of people got together and they're just, and they all rebel, and God punishes that. So if you took anything away from last week, you are who you hang with, right? And so this week, we're going to see how God confirmed Aaron. So we're going to start in Numbers 17. And I did not print it out, so I'm going to read it off my phone here. Hold, please. Numbers 17. Okay, starting in verse 1, it says, Then the Lord said to Moses. Okay, so we're going to stop there. What has Amy taught us about when we're reading the Bible and we see something like, Then the Lord said to Moses? It's coming after something, right? These three chapters, 16, 17, and 18, are the same little window of time. By all intents and purposes, you have 2 days of rebellion. On that second day, you see, then the Lord said to Moses. So this is still going on. So like we've learned, the numbers and the verse for the chapters and the verses aren't inspired by God. Some biblical scholars back in the medieval times added them to make it easier to parse through and teach from and all of that. So when we look at this, it's not like 17 starts a whole new day. We're just tailing off here. So then the Lord said to Moses, Tell the people of Israel to bring you 12 wooden staffs, one from each leader of Israel's ancestral tribes, and inscribe each leader's name on his staff. Inscribe Aaron's name on the staff of the tribe of Levi, for there must be one staff for the leader of each ancestral tribe. Place these staffs in the tabernacle in front of the ark containing the tablets of the covenant, where I meet with you. Buds will sprout on the staff belonging to the man I choose. Then I will finally put an end to the people's murmuring and complaining against you. So Moses gave the instructions to the people of Israel, and each of the 12 tribal leaders, including Aaron, brought Moses' staff. Moses placed the staffs in the Lord's presence in the tabernacle of the covenant. When he went into the tabernacle of the covenant the next day, he found that Aaron's staff, representing the tribe of Levi, had sprouted, budded, blossomed, and produced ripe almonds. Okay, stopping right there. It wasn't enough just to produce a little bud, right? God showed up in a big way. You had an entire season of an almond development overnight. Because it said, produced almonds, it produced ripe almonds. Like they were ready to go, okay? When Moses brought all the staffs out from the Lord's presence, he showed them to the people. Each man claimed his own staff, and the Lord said to Moses, "Place Aaron's staff permanently before the Ark of the Covenant to serve as a warning to rebels. This should put an end to their complaints against me and prevent any further deaths." So Moses did as the Lord commanded him. I'm going to stop there for a second. So, 12 staffs, and we have a miracle, right? And actually, if you think about it, you have two miracles, right? What's the first miracle? What was the first miracle with the staffs? The budded almonds, right? It's what's in the word. Any thoughts on what the second miracle might be? Second miracle, well, what did God command Moses to do with Aaron's staff after we showed everybody? What did he tell him to do from then on? Put it permanently with the ark, right? Was God going to put something with the ark that in 3 days was going to die? So the second miracle, and there's nothing really scriptural other than a verse in Hebrews that talks about how hundreds of years later Aaron's staff was still there. There's nothing concretely theological where I can say God sustained it. But I think it's reasonable to assume that not only did God produce and have it bud, he sustained it for hundreds and hundreds of years as a living thing, which just really punctuates what God's doing here, right? Not only is he confirming Aaron, he's reminding generations afterwards of what he did before in a very, very visual and tangible way. So, 2 miracles for one price, 2 for 1. Sorry, I go rambling and then I lose where I'm at in my notes. Sorry. Oh, I found when I was studying on the Hebrew, the word is called shaked. And the root for that word is shoked, meaning to watch or to be wakeful. And there's a verse in Jeremiah 1, 11 through 12. Somebody want to pull that up real fast? Jeremiah 1, 11 through 12. So there's a little wordplay there. We've seen this throughout different places we've studied in the Bible where there's plays on words and where God is very intentional about what he does. It wasn't an accident that he used an almond bud on Aaron's staff, was it? Because they would have also understood the symbolism of shoked, which is I'm watching. So God is sitting here saying, yes, Aaron is my guy, and I'm watching. So just something to really kind of chew on as you meditate on this. Like, God has so much that he does in each of these accounts that just layers and layers of layers of meaning when you dig into it. Then the people respond, right? And this is how they respond. Then the people of Israel said to Moses, "Look, we are doomed, we are dead, we are ruined. Everyone who comes close to the tabernacle of the Lord dies. Are we all doomed to die?" Now I'm feeling like it's middle schoolers, right? I mean, drama at a level 11. And so, even with all of this, God judging, punishing, interceding, establishing Aaron, all they can focus on, well, I guess that means we're all dead. okay, you kind of missed the point, right? What's God doing there? Proving it once and for all. This is Dad saying, I'm putting my foot down once and for all. No more. I don't want to hear it anymore. Aaron's my guy. And that's it. But what we see as we pivot into 18 is what that all means. But beforehand, what does Aaron's budding staff teach us about how God confirms his calling today? If he used a budding staff to confirm Aaron as his high priest, what can we learn from that? What's the bridge we can cross there in our own lives and our own faith journey? Well, that's one, yeah. Exactly. And God doesn't confirm through committee. They didn't sit around and have a big debate and vote, okay, Aaron's the guy. No, I said he's the guy. And I will give you display of why, or that I can confirm that he's my guy. And like we said, it's a dead stick. It's Aaron's staff. We saw that back at the beginning of Exodus, right? This thing's been around for a few years. It's dead. It's the desert. It's not green stick. It's none of that. And God, like I said, God didn't just have a little bud pop out, because if he had only done that, likelihood is what? It was said, well, it could have budded all on its own. You stuck it in some water, whatever, right? So undeniably, so God confirms his calling undeniably, right? It's just like how we, in our theology of baptism of the Holy Spirit, we believe in the assemblies that the baptism of the Holy Spirit is followed by the evidence of speaking in tongues. Why is that? Because it needs to be an outward evidence of an inward change, right? So that's what we see here. Why do you think the Israelites keep returning to fear even after seeing God's power? Why do they keep going back? Why did in 12 and 13, they're like, oh, we're all dead. It's all done. It's all over. That's it. I mean, admittedly, I'd be a little freaked out, and I think you would be, if I watched the earth swallow up 2 tents and families, 250 people just literally get cremated right there, and then another 14,000 people die of a plague. I don't fault them from being a little freaked out, but why do you think that led them to all hope is gone? They don't have that. What else, though? Why does fear keep bringing them? Their heart was hard. We talked about last week, right? Why do they keep rebelling? Because it's a heart issue. It's a heart condition. And people with a hard heart can't be argued with logic, right? You've known those people in your life that no matter how much you give them a good concrete reason, good explanation, evidence, and logic, they're just not going to believe you. We know those people, right? They're just hard-headed, thick-skulled, they're hard-hearted. And that's what's going on here, and that's what God keeps pointing to. Their hearts are hard. They're stiff-necked, right? No matter what I do, they're not going to believe me. What's that? So, anyways, so like I said, God doesn't resolve the question of calling through debate. He resolves it through a demonstration. And then, arguably, in this case, he's sustained that demonstration. Like, this is it. Moving into chapter 18, though, now he pivots, and we've established Aaron, but now what does that mean? Okay, so we've answered the question, is it really Aaron? Because that was the question in everybody's mind at the end of chapter 16. It's like, okay, we've argued, people have died. Is it really Aaron? God shows up. Yes, it's Aaron. Now we're going to look at, well, what does that mean? So what now? So in chapter 18, it says, then the Lord said to Aaron. Catch that. Who's he talking to? Aaron, not Moses. He's talking to Aaron now. Why is that important to note right now? Huh? Well, further proof, but if you're Aaron, how are you feeling right now? Yeah. People have rebelled against me. They've constantly challenged my position. People have died because of it. I ran with the censer of incense to stop the plague. God has now just made my staff bud with full almonds. By the way, I need a new staff, right? And I don't know, but I'd be a little freaked out too. And then God turns, and to this point, all we see, and we don't know if that's really how it always was, but really when you read this, you see God said to Moses, God said to Moses, God said to Moses, God said to Moses, right? I don't know, and I didn't look, but this is the first time I can think of where I see it, where it says, then God said to Aaron. And so, in a way, I almost see where God is like, okay, now that I've established you, I'm cementing my relationship with you. Yeah, Lonnie? Yeah. 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 Oh, absolutely. This is primary. And this is where you see the scriptures explicitly say the Lord said to Aaron, right? We see this in the I hate using the word story, but in the account, right? So then the Lord said to Aaron, you, your sons, and your relatives from the tribe of Levi will be held responsible for any offenses related to the sanctuary. But you and your sons alone will be held responsible for violations connected with the priesthood. Bring your relatives of the tribe of Levi, your ancestral tribe, to assist you and your sons as you perform the sacred duties in front of the tabernacle of the covenant. But as the Levites go about all of their assigned duties at the tabernacle, they must be careful not to go near any of the sacred objects or the altar. If they do, both you and they will die. The Levites must join you in fulfilling the responsibilities for the care and maintenance of the tabernacle, but no unauthorized person may assist you. You yourselves must perform the sacred duties inside the sanctuary and at the altar. If you follow these instructions, the Lord's anger will never again blaze against the people of Israel. I myself have chosen your fellow Levites from among the Israelites to be your special assistants. They are a gift to you, dedicated to the Lord for service in the tabernacle. But you and your sons, the priests, must personally handle all the priestly rituals associated with the altar and everything behind the inner curtain. I'm giving you the priesthood as your special privilege of service. Any unauthorized person who comes too near the sanctuary will be put to death. So we'll stop there for a second. So what just happened? What did you see? What just happened? People freaked out. We're all going to die. And then the Lord said to Aaron, well, yes, if you take this all too casually, yes, you will. Right? What's God doing here? He's establishing order, right? He's also reminding them of what about himself? His holiness, right? Why is that important right now? Why is it important for them to remember, not only for Aaron and the Levites, but the rest of Israel to remember that God is holy? Why is that important right now? Exactly. He's not vindictive, is he? He's not petty. He's not in a bad mood, got up on the wrong side of the bed, crabby, hangry, whatever word you want to use, right? He's none of those things. God is holy. And he's punctuating that right now with how Aaron was supposed to manage the tabernacle. And you see who was responsible, who would be held responsible for offenses against the tabernacle? Who? Aaron and all of them, right? If it was the general tabernacle, they were all held accountable. But if it was the sacred objects, it was especially Aaron. So if some Levite wandered too close or happened to wander into the inner curtain there, Aaron was held accountable. So God establishes Aaron at the end of 17 by miraculous and said, okay, now here's what that means. I'd be a little freaked out too, right? Okay, all right, you're holy. But that also shows that God takes things seriously, right? What you got, Lonnie? Right? Yeah. Aaron's got a heavy load. So another way of looking at this too is God is reminding him that I've given you the Levites to help you with that load. However, in dealing with all of that, there is an order and a structure. They can help you with a lot of stuff, but they can't handle the sacrifices. They can't go in and light the candle. They can't offer up the incense, and they by no means can go in the Holy of Holies. Only Aaron could do that, not even his sons could. So there's a structure and order to how God does things because he's holy. And he wants his holiness to be taken seriously, right? What does that say to us today? He's no less holy today. Do we take that seriously as a church? I don't know that I do. It's like we talked about at the end of last week, right? How you saw where the 250 were offering incense outside of the tabernacle. They weren't even inside the courts yet. And God just crisped them up right there, right? But because of what Jesus did, and we talked about the veil being torn, we can walk right past the entrance, past the altar, past the bath, into the holy place and into the Holy of Holies. Because the scripture says to approach the throne of grace with, does anyone remember? Confidence. To approach boldly. Not fearfully, not trembling, not hesitantly. Approach the throne of grace with confidence. So seeing how seriously God takes his holiness here should make us appreciate our salvation that much more. Because what does Peter say about us? We are a kingdom of priests. This is what Peter was thinking about when he said that. God had an order to holiness, and by virtue of our adoption as sons and daughters of the living God, we are a kingdom of priests trusted with the holy things of God, trusted with an intimate relationship with God, trusted to do the things of God, but we can't be casual with it. And I've struggled with this stuff because a casual reading at first, I had the same things like, well, who can do this? This is a lot, and it seems harsh and it seems very strict and structured. And anybody who knows me is like, I don't like a ton of structure. But I was reminded as I was studying that the holiness of God and the seriousness of his holiness should make us trust him all the more. And the analogy that I came upon was that of a surgeon. If a surgeon takes his craft seriously, is serious about sterility, about making sure he knows the procedure he's doing, that he's commanding the operating room well, right? We can fully trust him, right? If a surgeon is casual about washing his hands and coming in and just throwing things around and doing all that, is he a trustworthy surgeon? So if we had a casual God, is he worth trusting? No. And that's why I highlighted it on your sheet there. A casual God is, a God you can treat casually is not a God worth trusting with your life. The weight is what makes the relationship real. And we're going to see that on the back half of this, because he's laid out all of this structure and all of the consequences of not following the structure. And then this happens. The Lord gave further instructions to Aaron. Again, who's he talking to? Aaron. I myself have put you in charge of all the holy offerings that are brought to me by the people of Israel. I have given all of these consecrated offerings to you and your sons as your permanent share. You are allotted the portion of the most holy offerings that is not burned on the fire. This portion of all the most holy offerings includes the grain offerings, sin offerings, and guilt offerings will be most holy. This portion of all those will be most holy, and it belongs to you and your sons. You must eat it as a most holy offering. All the males may eat of it, and you must treat it as most holy. All of the sacred offerings and special offerings presented to me when the Israelites lift them up before the altar also belong to you. I've given them to you and your sons and daughters as your permanent share. Any member of your family who is ceremonially clean may eat of these offerings. I also give you the harvest gifts brought by the people as offerings to the Lord, the best of the olive oil, new wine, and grain. All of the first crops of their land that the people present to the Lord belong to you. Any member of your family who is ceremonially clean may eat this food. Everything in Israel that is specially set apart for the Lord also belongs to you. The firstborn of every mother, whether human or animal, that is offered to the Lord will be yours. But you must always redeem your firstborn sons and the firstborn of ceremonially unclean animals. Redeem them when they are 1 month old. The redemption price is 5 pieces of silver as measured by the weight of the sanctuary shekel, which equals 20 gerahs. However, you may not redeem the firstborn of cattle, sheep, or goats. They are holy and have been set apart for the Lord. Sprinkle their blood on the altar and burn their fat as a special gift, a pleasing aroma to the Lord. The meat of these animals will be yours, just like the breast and the right thigh that are presented by lifting them up as a special offering before the altar. Yes, I am giving you all these holy offerings that the people of Israel bring to the Lord. They are for you and your sons and daughters to be eaten as your permanent share. This is an eternal and unbreakable covenant between the Lord and you, and it also applies to your descendants. And the Lord said to Aaron, and this is probably the key verse in this passage, you priests will receive no allotment of land or share of property among the people of Israel. Bummer, right? But wait, there's more. I am your share in your allotment. As for the tribe of Levi, your relatives, I will compensate them for their service in the tabernacle. Instead of an allotment of land, I will give them the tithes from the entire land of Israel. And we'll stop there. So what is God saying now? I've set up structure, I'm holy, and what's he saying on the back half? I'm your share. What's he going to do for Aaron? He's going to take care of him. Is this a consolation prize? You're not getting any land, but you get this. It's the best. You get the best of all the harvest offerings. You get the best of all of the other offerings that the people bring. Those are yours. You do this, and you have to carry this weight, but it comes with me providing for you. God, this is not the consolation prize. This is the prize, right? I go off on tangents and I lose my place. I'm sorry. So that is the most beautiful verse in the chapter, though. You will have no inheritance, nor will you have any share among them. I am your share and your inheritance among the Israelites. God's telling him, I am enough. And we see this in a couple different places in the Psalms. We see it throughout the scripture, but there are 2 places where it really pops out. One is in Psalm 16:5. Can somebody pull it up real fast? And the other one is going to be Psalm 73:26. Somebody want to grab that? Yep. 73:26. Okay. The translation I have for 16:5 says, "You, Lord, you alone are my portion and my cup. You make my lot secure." Does anybody know who wrote Psalm 16? David. Okay, so we have David saying this. Psalm 73, I have, "My flesh and my heart may fail, but God is the strength of my heart and my portion forever." That was written by Asaph. What was Asaph? He was a Levite. So as he's writing this, you know he had to be thinking back, because they memorized all the Torah. They memorized Numbers. So they knew when he's writing that, he's referring to, "You're my portion forever." He's reaffirming that and reaffirming to himself that God is my portion. So the Levites didn't just accept God as their inheritance by default. The Psalms show this because that became their theology. They stood on that. So let's talk about this. How should the holiness of God shape how we approach him? God is relational but never casual. What does that distinction look like in your daily life? How should the holiness of God shape the way we approach him? What were you saying, Bill? Yeah. I had a thought and I just lost it. Yeah. It speaks to how powerful that sacrifice was, right? If all of, and I don't want to say if all of this is true, as if it might not be, all of this, what we're reading, is true about God. Has it changed? He's just as holy, like you said, Angela. He's just as holy today as he was then. How powerful was the sacrifice of Jesus that we can approach him like we can today? I mean, and I think that's why we struggle so much with it. We have been given so much grace that sometimes we lose sight of it, right? Stephanie grew up Catholic, and theology aside, and some of the things I disagree with them on, one thing I've always admired about them is their appreciation of the sacred. If you've ever gone to a Catholic Mass or even a Lutheran Mass, it's a very solemn thing, right? It's a very sacred thing. And I think oftentimes in the modern Christian church and the American church, we lose sight of that, right? Because we can just go up and pray. We can just sing a few songs that they're up on the screen. But I think we're missing out. And I'm speaking to myself now too, if we forget about the holiness of God and the privilege that it is. First of all, God is relational. Does he have to be relational? Did he have to be relational? God can do whatever he wants. He could have created earth and said, good luck. But he's relational. And to take it a step further, when we messed up, he made a way for us to have relationship with him again. But he's holy and he's unchanging. In what ways can we learn to see God himself as our greatest inheritance and not just his blessing? I've heard this say, look for the giver and not the gift. What way can we think about and do that? Yeah, I mean, yeah. How can we discipline? I guess I could write it like this. How can we discipline ourselves to focus more on God himself and not the things we need from him? What does that look like? How do we live that out? What does it mean for you in daily life to focus on God and not just saying, God, my car is breaking down right now. Lord, I just need you to help me out with the car, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, I think that's exactly right. Mm-hmm. 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 Well, and later on, when Jesus is talking about that, and he says, why do you worry about the food you eat and the clothes you will wear? What does he say? Seek ye first and all these. So Jesus punctuates it, right? Like I said last week, right? The New Testament is the Old Testament concealed, or is the Old Testament revealed. The Old Testament is a New Testament concealed, right? They mirror and they echo each other when you look at it that way. So we see here, God says, I am your portion. Jesus saying, seek ye first the kingdom and all these things will be added. It's the same thing, just restated differently. It's just some closing thoughts that I had on this. Like I said, this is, as the wilderness turns, all my Israelites, this is the soap opera. But what we see is, their actions, their rebellion exposed their hearts, right? They didn't trust God. They didn't fully believe that he was going to take care of them. We see that when they're grumbling about meat, they're grumbling about water, they're grumbling about this, they're grumbling about that. They don't trust God, right? And we're just as guilty of it. If we don't like what our boss is doing, what do we do sometimes? We'll grumble, right? It just means we don't trust them. We don't trust what they're doing. And Whereas an earthly boss is human and prone to mistakes, our Heavenly Father is not. So I want to take some time. We're going to sing a worship song. And then I'm going to take some time like last week, spend some time in prayer, and then we'll come together for corporate prayer.